Well, we're going to go into an update on the NFLPA lawsuit that was filed last year.
It was filed by 4 players: Carl Eller, Priest Holmes, Obafemi Ayinbadejo, and Ryan Collins. Carl Eller, as you guys know, is a Hall of Famer. Priest Holmes is a Pro Bowler, former Pro Bowler. Femi Ayinbadejo won a Super Bowl with the Ravens, and his brother, Brandon Ayinbadejo, currently plays with the Ravens and actually came out in support of retired players' rights at our press conference in June of 2011. And Ryan Collins, who is an unvested player. The case was filed by my firm, Zell, Hoffman, Vogel, and Mason, and Hausfeld, LLP, which Jim Mitchell is a member of back there. This was different because in past lawsuits, the union, in this particular lawsuit, the union completely disbanded. And they filed on behalf of current players and rookies only. They didn't file on behalf of retirees. Once we realized that the union was not going to file on behalf of the retirees, we filed suit. We made a number of proposals to the NFL and to the court. We essentially asked that retirees be granted their own independent organization for retirees, run by retirees. We asked for drastic improvements in pensions and disability that were more commensurate to that of baseball. We asked for 1-year partial vesting for all football players and 3-year full vesting for everyone else. This way, every player would be considered vested and would receive some portion of the benefits, albeit on a graduated scale. And we also asked for fundamental changes to the disability program that would create more access, et cetera. I won't go through all the details, but suffice it to say that during the settlement negotiations, we realized that the impediment to achieving these goals was not the league, but it was the union. Therefore, we voluntarily dismissed the case, I believe, July or September of 2011. We voluntarily dismissed the case against the league, and then we filed against the NFLPA. This created Eller 2. In September and October of 2011, roughly 45 guys filed a class action against the NFLPA, including a couple guys in this room, Bruce Laird and Dave Pear. The cases were filed by my firm again, Zell Hoffman, and by Jim's firm, Hausfeld. The cases are known as Carl Eller et al. Versus NFLPA and Willie Gault et al. Versus NFLPA. Class action consists of 27 Hall of Famers, 26 of whom are listed in the NFL's official encyclopedia as 300 of the greatest players in NFL history, and 20 non-Hall of Famers. The two groups combined represent every decade in pro football since the 1940s and represent virtually every position in football in every category of NFL player, including vested, non-vested, Hall of Famers, forgotten players, and legends of the game. Lawsuit was filed on behalf of all former NFL players and seeks to increase the retirement benefits of all players, vested and non-vested. The suit essentially says that the NFLPA interfered with the retirees' ability to negotiate the settlement I mentioned earlier with the league, and that the NFLPA had no authority to do this. They didn't have any authority to do this because, one, if the NFLPA were serious about negotiating on behalf of the retirees, they would have filed a lawsuit on behalf of the retirees during the lockout, and not just the rookies and the active players. Two, when the NFLPA disbanded, they left the door open for retirees to come in and represent themselves, which they did. And three, most importantly, labor law says that when you disband your union, you can no longer collectively bargain, especially in this case, on behalf of retirees. Now, the NFLPA claims now that they never spoke about anything related to retirees during those negotiations. They say they never collectively bargained on anything related to retirees. Those are the representations that they make in the court now. However, they have a problem. NFLPA officials stated on multiple occasions at their retired players convention, through tweets from some of their higher level officials, through representations that they made to certain Hall of Famers. They told them that they were always being represented during the negotiations by the NFLPA. So don't worry about filing another lawsuit. Don't worry about following these other guys because we're representing you. Whereas now they say, no, we never said anything like that and we never did anything like that. Second problem is that the CBA contains elements related to retired players. Those elements were obviously negotiated during the time the NFLPA stated it wasn't a union. And then the third thing is the Brady Settlement Agreement. The Brady Settlement Agreement was the agreement between the league and the NFLPA that was negotiated and ultimately agreed to at the conclusion of the settlement process. That was not supposed to have anything in it related to retirees. However, they made that document public for the first time in the filings responding to some of our requests. And in that Brady Settlement Agreement, it is clear that there are issues related to retirees in it. Specifically the legacy fund, but other issues other than that. And then also, this is an aside, but there are also issues that were specifically collectively, issues for collectively bargaining, or that the subject of collective bargaining that shouldn't have been in there. Why all this matters is this. There was at least $2 billion on the table and arguably $3 billion on the table for retirees before these negotiations began, way back in February and March of 2011. By the end, you guys all know that only $900 million went to retirees, $620 million of that which was in a legacy fund. We feel our position is that the NFLPA used the leverage the retirees had going into these negotiations to negotiate better benefits for the active players to the detriment of the retired players. If we are ultimately successful, the hope is that retirees will receive the type of things that I mentioned earlier. For example, their own independent organization run by retirees, serious improvements to pension, for example, a minimum, I say minimum, of $500 to $750 per credited season per month. So a 10-year player would receive a minimum of $60,000 to $75,000 per year, regardless of whether they took the Social Security election. In 2006, a New York Times video cited Dennis Curran of the NFL as stating that in 2005, the NFL's disability and retirement programs had over $1.1 billion. However, in 2005, only $20 million in disability benefits were paid to only 317 former players. We hope to change this with this lawsuit. And additionally, we hope to change the vesting requirement that I mentioned earlier to partial vesting for everyone with at least either a 1-game or 1-year level of experience, and then full vesting for everyone with at least 3 years. The NFLPA filed a motion to dismiss the case, which was heard on February 15, 2012. As of today, we've not heard anything from the court. At this point, we are hopeful that the court will dismiss the NFLPA's motion to dismiss and allow the case to proceed. But if the judge does not, I believe we feel strongly that an appeal will be successful. So, Bruce, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Well, yeah, thank you, Shawn. I just want to let everybody know that I got into this battle a lot like Dave Pear did. It was personal only to the fact that it was personal between the Baltimore Colts and their family. A lot of you come from cities and have alumni groups that are very, very solid. One of the strongest that I've ever seen or been around has been the Baltimore Colts. We have players from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that we still all gather together. The great Artie Donovan, the late John Unitas, we all met, we all took care of each other from generation to generation. We found out that John Mackey had dementia in 2005. I was a player rep, been a member of the NFLPA my whole time. As soon as I got out, I've been involved in them. I've been an officer of the NFLPA for over 25 years. I did what everybody thought was the right thing to do. I went to Gene Upshaw and the union and asked about the great John Mackey and the 12 or 13 other families that we knew about that had dementia and what he was going to do about it. The story gets really convoluted from there. Quite frankly, he just said, rest assured, we're taking care of it. Go home and don't bother me again. About a month later, I asked Sylvia if she's heard anything from the union. By the way, if you don't know the history, John Mackey was the first president of the combined NFL-AFL. He was the gap between the two divisions or two sides of the leagues when they merged. First black president, first one, did a lot, lost his career probably because of his union affiliation. Well, through that, and I'll try and be as short as possible, through that, we formed our own foundation in 2006. I started writing with the help of John Hogan, Jeff Nixon, Tony Davis, many, many other people, John Wooten, Joe DeLamoulere, I can go on. We started forming an inside group. We started our blog. We started raising money, and we wanted to prove to both the league and the union that we retirees are assets. And as Conrad has stated and other people stated, when you look at the NFL, seriously, to them, it's just business. You know what I mean? Don't take it personal. It's just business. And that's what we wanted to do back. We wanted to tell the league and the union, we are about business. Retired players are probably one of the best assets they have. They run our likenesses through every Super Bowl year, through everything they do. You're seen around stadiums, all the retired players. They're revered by the fans because the older retired player are more involved. Well, make a long story short, that was my dream. And my dream was to talk to both of these institutions, they're billion-dollar institutions, and try and get us to have some credibility and have a voice. Have the voice that Shawn's talking about here. I know we legally don't have that, but have the voice to sit down with these two institutions and talk about our issues. The great John Unitas once told me, he said, Bruce, I don't want to hear about your wants. I do this to my family. I have sons. Don't tell me what you want. Tell me what you need, and I will try and help you with your needs. And that was a piece that I brought to both the union and the league. Through our efforts, we've written letters, certified letters to both of these institutions, from Gene Upshaw to D. Smith to Roger Goodell. And the only person that ever answered any of my correspondence was Roger Goodell. And whatever you think of the league, I'm back to the fact that I'm a businessman. I've been out in business, I understand business, and I know it's business. So I proceeded with the fact that I thought that we could hold our own group, be a strong unity of retired players. With the Shield and some other help, we could develop our own business and represent ourselves. Why should the late Gene Upshaw, now D. Smith, now somebody else, tell us in this room and many of our brothers who and what we need? We know what we need. We know what our brothers need in our families, in our own cities, and so on. So with this effort, and I say the effort of these men that helped me through this, and we raised money, we got things done, I got the ear of the commissioner, which brought Robert of what happened. I was selected along with Tom DePascio of the NFLPA, George Martin, now director of the NFL alumni. Ron Mix was with me, was talking about work comp. Carl Eller was there. Bruce Laird and Willie Lanier were invited to go to New York to talk about the Legacy Fund. Now here's where it gets really squirrely. The Legacy Fund was everything we as retired players heard about from the union. There was going to be a fund. You heard it was possibly $2,000 a month increase. And then from there, it somehow got to a $1,000 a month increase. But it was always a fund. And this fund would be distributed over the 10-year period because the CBA was going to go either 7 or 10 years. So that money was going to be distributed to retirees pre-93 because that's who the league and the union were saying needed the help. These were the gentlemen pre-93. What's the difference? For those of you that don't know, that's before the new CBA came into effect, the salary cap, all the new venues. So I want to read you something because this is what's important. The meeting was September 15th. I received this by FedEx from the league on the 12th. I took a day off from my job, got on the train to go to New York. But while I was reading it and while I was sitting there, here it is. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for planning to attend the meeting set for September 15th to discuss the distribution of the legacy benefit established in the recent adopted 2011 CBA. As stated in Article 57 of the CBA, the benefit will be funded by a fixed aggregated contribution by the NFL and its clubs of $620 million over the term of the CBA, to be distributed to vested players who have credited seasons prior to '93. Our agenda will consist of alternate formulas for the method of allocating these funds for former players. So you really think, okay, we are going to have that one voice that we needed. We were going to be able to say, what should we do? Should we take care of players that were older, that didn't make the money that some of us did in the 80s? And I'm talking about the guys, Roger Brown, some of these gentlemen that came in the 50s and 60s, that are not going to have the long lifespans, that are receiving a pension and won't be with us over the next 15 years. But here is where it goes. In addition to the fixed total of the legacy, now they say fund, several other items were fully negotiated and not subject to change. I'll read that again to you. In addition to the fixed total of the legacy fund, several other items were fully negotiated and not subject to change. And it goes on to basically say the reason we are here is to hear what is not, has the two items that have not been fully negotiated were, should we give a floor to the retired player that took early Social Security, took their pension at 45 with their Social Security and the possible of a lump sum. To those players like Herb Adderley and about Ron, I'm going to say 35 or 40 Hall of Famers that took that allocation, took those funds, after they hit the age of 65, their pension became less than $200 a month. The floors were $500, $600, or $750. That was one item. The next item was whether we should allocate our opinion of allocating funds to the older retiree. In other words, should there be a break where the players of the 50s and 60s and early 70s received more money than the guys after 73 or 5? And we totally agreed, after many discussions, we totally agreed, and Ron, correct me if I'm wrong here, we totally agreed as a consensus, we want to allocate a system where more money went to the older player that didn't get the paid that we even got in the 70s and 80s. So we voted on that. Now again, this was a discussion that we had, and I remember exclusively, and the point is, with this, Shawn, the point is, I asked Dennis Kern directly to his face, I want to hear your definition of the legacy fund. Can you describe to me what you, as the league, were negotiating on behalf? And quite frankly, he said, we negotiated on our behalf, the league's behalf, that the legacy fund was for pre-93 players. Players that got out of the league prior to 93. Okay? So they agreed to that, and that's all we heard from the union. But at the end of the day, what happened was, we left the meeting, they went back and negotiated. It would be Tom DePascio, Dennis Kern negotiates the retired player benefits. They came back and came to the agreement was that we didn't get the $750 we asked for the floor. That was knocked down to $600, and the allocation of funds were $124 a year for players that had that retired before 73, and $108 for players after 73. So the older players did receive more money. Now, here's the key to why it's a benefit, and this is what I asked as well. There was never a fund involved in this. A fund would have been, guys, that through the 10 years, the $620 million would be spent, okay? It would all be spent, and then as we move to the next time the CBA was up, we would have another opportunity to negotiate further pension increases for retired players. Many of us hopefully would still be alive, but retired players that had played before the new CBA. And what does the new CBA mean to some of you older players? New CBA means that they not only got a severance pay, they got 5 years health and dental. They got an annuity, they got a 401k, they got tuition reimbursement. It goes on and on and on. There's 15 additional benefits that the modern player receives after he retires after 1993 that none of us in this room ever got, except for some of us kind of younger old dogs. I got a severance check. So I want to make that clear. We weren't there to talk about anything because remember in the sentence, in addition to the fixed total of the legacy fund, no, they don't even know on the first page it's a benefit, the second page it's a fund, several items were fully negotiated and not subject to change. And that was one of them. And my point, along with Ron Mix and some of the other guys that actually knew some things in the room, most of them didn't. Ron and I, due respect to the other gentlemen, were the most educated men in the room about the issues. I even asked, why are crossover players included in this benefit? What does it mean by being a crossover player? A crossover player is someone that was actually vested prior to 93, so they came in the league in 89, okay? They came in the league in 89, but they didn't retire until after 93. Those 5 years at $108, you do the math, 749 of those players were negotiated and given this money and taken out of the money of the retirees prior to 93 so the union could take care of their own. 749 players that are already receiving severance pay, 401k, annuity, tuition reimbursement, the new health care benefit, which is actually $320,000 a year if you're a 5-year player or more. They'll put that into you in case you can't pay your health care after your 5 years of free health and dental, which is way it's probably worth about $18,000 a year with their system. All those gentlemen were included. I asked Dennis Curran, I said, now Dennis, you just said that you fully negotiated on behalf of the league for all this money to go to pre-93 players. Is that correct? Yes. Then again, why are crossover players included in this? He had no answer other than the fact that I will agree with Shawn that our own union threw us under the bus to make sure 749 guys that weren't going to get this money for some 20 years would get another $420 a month on a pension that most of them would have $350 to $375. Everybody in this room with the bumps, you end up at $250 a month. Okay, $250 a month times how many years you played times when you take your pension is how it goes. If you took your pension at age 55, young guys, if you take your pension at 55, you're going to get a one sum. If you wait 10 years, 2.5 times what you'll get in 55, you'll get at 65. Now that's rolling the dice, you know, talk to your accountants, find out how long your family lives and roll the dice. But it's a big difference. And I just want to let everybody know, we got this opportunity, but at the end of the day, you go there and you're so excited and you get this thing, and I have it right here, and I'll give it to Robert Lee, he can post it. You have a thing that, you know, the meeting's on the 15th, and you get the FedEx on the 12th, and then you're told, hey, you're going to come up to discuss 2 things that we think we'd like your opinion on because the rest of it's already been fully negotiated and not subject to change. So that's been my run through dealing with both. And unfortunately, as I did this, I realized without the union's help, we won't get anything. If we just had the union, we're not going to get any help from the owners. We needed to be talking to both of these institutions about our needs. Yes, Conrad.
Let me ask you a question. You talked about the fund, and it's there for 10 years, that if they want to at the end of the CDA, they don't have to fund it anymore. We can go back to where the pension was.
That's correct, but that fund would have all been distributed over the 10-year period.
They don't have to keep the fund going.
Right, and that's why when they,
They can do the date to all pre-1989 players, or players that,
well, you know, the big thing for me is I'm saying, what do most retired players playing before 93 need? I mean, whether it's healthcare or anything, the majority of the hundreds and hundreds of guys I've talked to, they need money now. They need a better pension. If you had a better pension, you could maybe take care of your family better. You could maybe afford health care if you're not in a situation where you couldn't get it. But they needed the money now. And again, at $250 a month times when you took it. And I also asked the question, you'll be astonished by this. I asked the question of Dennis Kern a month ago. I said, how many players currently taking their pensions now, which is between 2,800 and 3,000, waited till 65? Anybody care to give me the your percentage of who waited?
10%.
10%. Thank you, Dave. 10% waited. And I'm one of them. Hopefully that, you know, maybe I don't make it to 65. Maybe I'll do it at 63, whatever. Only 10%. So that's how many players of that ilk took their pension early. And for whatever reason. Most of the time we were lied to. We were told we weren't going to live that long. Mickey Harris Davis is telling Congress, take your pension. Don't file for this. You'll get more than that. I've never been in a company. We were in one of the greatest businesses of the world and still is. It's the greatest business in the world, the National Football League. And we have a union that doesn't even give us an exit meeting. Do you ever meet with anybody when we retired or were let go or anything? Union ever call you up and say, you know, hey, Bob, Cooch, I want you to come in. I want to show you all the things that you need to know about what's going to happen to you when you get out. Here's what's going on here. Here's your health. Here's this. Here's that. No one ever did that. Never did it to me, so they never did it to any of you. So you never knew. You just went on hearsay. That's why Ron's talking about. No one ever knew. No one ever told you about workers' comp. No one ever came to you and say, you know, geez, you're going to get beat up. Never mind the concussion issue of what we've learned now about CTE and some of the other things. So again, the dream that we had as an entity was to get us, which I hope can still take place. I think the law firms that we have in here doing that is our only shot of bringing us together. Bring us together so we can talk as one voice. And whether you belong to the PA or the alumni or you don't belong to any of them, we are all retired players. And unless we do that, we'll be having these conventions and these talks and talking about the same stuff. It'll be like Groundhog Day. John Hogan and I have a saying. You can't make this shit up. And when you think about it, everything that we've done since 2005, we have emails that go back and we've tried. When you really look at it, and I have 5 briefcases full of what we call stuff. And it's just unbelievable. You cannot make this shit up of what we've all gone through, of what Dave went through in disability. I was blessed. I didn't have that. And then I didn't know, and then I missed the window anyway. But really, when you look at what we've done through the 39 years since the first time we got the pension in '61, where our forefathers fought for it in '59, Frank Gifford and even crazy Bernie Parrish and all those guys fought for everything to where we are now. I'll tell you, John and I were thinking about it. He's got some great smart daughters. We're thinking about writing a book. But when we finish it, no one would ever believe it. That's how crazy it has gotten. Because you really, when you think about what we've gone through and what you just heard there, I mean, here are these people, oh yeah, boy, let's come together. Let's start our own group and we'll work for you. And promise we won't say a word to the league about retirees. You know, they lied to him. Dennis Kern told me right to my face, Dennis, what are you doing there? Well, there was 5 of us in the room. And we also have the letter where they said, we took your stuff under advisement. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. And that's it. Because you know what? The league and the union are in bed together. They may not look like it, but the league and the union are in bed together. They're business partners. The owners are business partners, and the union is business partners. They're going to argue just like brothers and sisters argue, just like you argued and fought with your brother. They'll argue, but they're in bed together. So having one without the other and not being separate and being our own entity will always have these meetings, and it will go on forever until we get that done. Thank you.
Bruce, question. If there was a solution out there, what do you think the solution would be?
If it's way above my pay grade. I don't, you know, we have no legal representation. They have no legal right. We have no legal rights to any of those two institutions. Morally, of course. And of course, with this concussion situation, we all played the game. We all got dinged. We all got concussions. But no one ever came to you after a year of concussions. My doctors, I had the same doctor. When we played, we usually had the same doctor for the whole career. I had my same guy for 10 years. His orthopod, wasn't a neuro. But, you know, I said, you know, is he concussed? Oh, you know, you'll be fine. You know, it'll go away. Just you know, you'll be all right. So again, no one ever told us that if you were multiple concussed, that you were going to have a 37% chance of possibly developing frontal lobe dementia early on, like the case in North Carolina did, and then from beyond and beyond. And of course, now they're doing what they do. There's a baseline test. They're very serious about it now because we're suing their ass. I mean, that's why they're serious about it. And why we got to where we were, because my friends and people that we had a passion for, we developed these systems, and we wanted to say, and I say this again, we wanted to tell the league and the union that we were an asset. And I'll say this over and over again. Don't, I mean, you can, and Dave, for perfect, I can understand your frustration. Those people in the disability system are crooks and stuff. But the NFL itself, it's not personal. It's just business. And unless you can get them on business terms, which I think now we can with what we're doing here, with what the lawyers are helping us with these concussions. And I think this lawsuit that we have against the NFLPA, I think it will win. I think just like Herb Adderley and Bernie Parrish did against Players Inc. in the NFLPA for fiduciary duties, we'll get them. But without us coming together, Gary, seriously, without us really coming together, where Roger Goodell and D. Smith can say, you know what, there's 5,000 retired players that are signed up or something under one roof, and we got to deal with those 5,000 guys. I don't know what else you have. But what else do you have? Unless you have unity, and we've not been able to come together. Now, we're basically all in the same path with what we're thinking and what we're doing, but the league just goes and the union just goes, well, who do I talk to? Do I talk to Dave Pear? Do I talk to Dick and Gridiron Greats? Or is Bruce Laird's foundation and his group, are he the one to talk to? And we all know, no, not really, not either of us, but we all represent the same thing. But that's just, again, that's business. That's just an excuse to say, I don't have to talk to you. You know what I'm getting at?
If I could just say this, there's a lot of, and John, hopefully you correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of people think that the CBA is set in stone for the next 10 years. However, the CBA can be changed tomorrow. Is that correct, John? Disability. Right. I mean, there are certain aspects of the CBA that they can change right now, and they don't want to do it. And, you know, I would just say as far as getting all together, I mean, I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, we all got to unify some way. But see, the problem is you got some retired players that are being paid by certain parts of the NFL, whether it's the NFLPA, whether it's the NFL through Roger Goodell to the NFL alumni. And as long as, and you can't slap the hand that feeds you. in the NFL, in my opinion, they created this mess, and this is just what they want. Bickering and going back and forth. But we need to unite. I mean, hey, you know what? I'm the first guy to say, you know.
I think, Dave, real quickly, I mean, there's no question. And again, you got people, I mean, as we mentioned, I think Conrad mentioned it. I mean, Mike Ditka gets a lot of money because of his working for the National Football League, okay? But he had the intestinal fortitude to step up. He said he knew it. He started his foundation for dire need. He doesn't advocate through that. Your foundation, your group, and my group, I think, is the only advocating group out there. And the other one is Ditka. And again, he's not advocating. He just says, I know it's broken, fix it. So there are guys. I mean, Ron Jaworski's one. Howie Long's one. You get them off, and they'll stand behind you. They don't care, because what we're fighting for is for us to come and be part of something to talk to both of these institutions about our needs. And I mean, believe me, I've been going at it a little bit longer than you, but the same thing. I racked my brain. John Hogan and I have probably been talking more than we talked to our wives in the last 6 or 7 years. And that's one of the things. You know, how do you do it? I don't know. I mean, I've done everything from contacting chapter officers of the PA and the alumni, from writing. When I don't hear back from them, I'll write their wives. I don't hear back from them, I'll write their wives' wives. You know, you just try and get the entities to engage and try and help you, and you fail. I can't get anybody from not only the Alumni Association or the PA, i.e. the chapter presidents and officers that we all elect, to do anything. So here we sit. We have a good group of people, and we're going to try and get the word out. And right now we're facing something else. And at least my group in my state, in the city of Baltimore, I have 2 wives, Sylvia Mackey and Sandy Unitas. Both of their husbands died prior to August 4th, 2011. They are not receiving legacy benefits. And there's no rhyme and reason why they should not. The last 2 increases, everybody got them, but the union is not giving the wives, and it's been 8 months. In the last 3 months, since early February, I've written to Roger Goodell, Dee Smith, Jim McFarland, active player reps, asking them why. Dominic Foxworth, don't get any response. Why aren't you going to take care of these women? These men protected their wives. They took the joint retirement, took the 20% a month cut to make sure their families were protected. And this union, our union, Dee Smith, is holding up the works on 320 of these women. And everybody goes, you talk to the press back there. Why? Why would they do that?
Well, because they're not a union. It's a social club. I mean, they're not really a union. I mean, they bring disrespect on any legitimate union. So we call it a union, but it's not really a union.
But they're negotiating with the league. That's the problem. They're negotiating with the league, and they've been saying it. That's why this lawsuit is so important. They said it to these lawyers. They said it to Carl Eller and everybody else, that they'll take care of you. Yes.
I've got 2 strikes against me. Number 1, I'm an offensive lineman. And number 2, this is my first meeting. However, it seems to me like, thank God for all these brilliant legal minds that are assembled here today. Up until now, it used to be David, or Goliath versus David, who were David. They had all, owners had all the money, of course, and they still do. And they had the law firms because they could pay them. And we were down here with one of them that speed roll. Well, thanks to you guys' willingness, you guys are the top guns in this friggin' country at what you do. And so therefore, it's now Goliath and Goliath. You guys are kind enough and successful enough to work on, get paid a fraction of what we win, if and when we win, right? That's how you're getting paid.
Yeah, contingency.
Contingencies. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your accomplishments as attorneys before you got here. But we're not weaker than the NFL and whoever's representing them. It's mano a mano. And we've got public opinion on our side as well.
We hope.
Shawn, how do you use this? I wanted to ask, I've done a little bit of homework in terms of youth. Found two situations, two cases. Well, we use a microphone, yeah. It actually, I think I've actually found two instances
where retirees have actually left and broken off with their active members in their unions and formed their own groups. They've sued, they've broken off. Number one, I want to know if that's possible with the Retired Players Union, if there's a possibility of the retirees breaking off. Basically, because I think we can probably file criminal charges. I would like to see nothing better than a bunch of perp walks out of the union and the league offices for some of the stuff they've done to you guys. The other question I guess I've got to ask is timeline. Are we looking at another year, 2 years before this thing can go to trial, Shawn? And is this probably going to be a jury trial?
Well, to the first question, I mean, that's essentially what we've done here. You know, sure. Is that better? All right. To the first question, that's essentially what we've done here. You know, the retirees didn't officially disband from this particular union. However, the union's position is that the retirees are not a part of the union. You know, I think if you are a member of the NFLPA Retired Players Division, you probably walk around with a card that states in all respects that you are a member of that union. However, the NFLPA's official position is that we are not a member of their union. So, but the litigation that we have ongoing right now is essentially the same thing. To the second part, what was it? What was that? Oh, well. If we survive the motion to dismiss, there'll then be a discovery order put in place. It's hard to say. Depends on how much discovery the judge allows us to have. But my guess would be a year after her decision is made. It would be a date for trial. However, we would probably still have to get past a motion for summary judgment, which we might even file a motion for summary judgment on our own behalf. So that's the type of time frame you're looking at.
Live long and prosper until then.
And you can believe that whatever decision is made is probably going to be appealed on both sides. So,
What does Spock say?
Bruce, quick question.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a legacy fund, a fund versus a benefit,
Yes.
thinking about how it's actually going to, how the owners are, and the Players Association are going to put the money forward for the legacy. Is it a lump sum they're making every year? They're funding a set amount? Because I think about a fund different than a benefit, in that the benefit, here's what we're going to pay you every month.
Yeah,
And, excuse me?
You're right, because the fund became a benefit. They used the word fund, but it was never negotiated as a fund. A fund would be exactly that in over the 10-year period, we are going to give out $620 million. Okay?
All right.
But now that they put it in a benefit,
If they put it in a benefit, if it's wait until we die, as we decease,
where's the money go?
They have less money to pay.
Absolutely. Just like it is now.
So the marketing piece is it's a $620 million fund.
It's actually $400
But the
million.
reality is that once it's really executed as a benefit, the monthly payment or whatever that amount is who knows what it'll be. It could definitely be lower than the 220. Correct?
Well, here's how it is now.
They're not committed to the 220. They're committed to the monthly payment as a defined
Absolutely. And how that's funded, whether it's, I'm assuming that, I'm assuming they're not taking out their $620 million and putting it somewhere
Correct.
right now. They're going to fund it as it's needed. But as you say, as you die, all right?
Yeah.
And if you don't protect your wife,
Correct.
the money goes into the pot.
Right. And at the end, they don't distribute the pot because we're all gone.
No.
They keep it. So it's really,
Correct.
it really isn't, it's not a
No.
set amount.
And again, that's why I was talking to Jim McFarland and the so-called NFL former retire board, saying, why aren't you fighting for this fund? Because the fund would be, again, the money goes through and it's
Right.
distributed over a 10-year period, and it wouldn't be years of service. But because they put it in the Burt Bell, Pete Rozelle retirement benefit package, it has all the rules and regulations of the retirement benefit package.
And in order to set up the benefit, they do the actuarials and come up with the amount of money, very conservatively, I would assume.
No, again, the money's just put in what is existing right now.
I called the pension fund. I asked them about the
Did you
funding
get through?
for this. Excuse me?
Did you get through?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
And-
Okay.
Well, I looked at the funding.
Greg, would you speak with?
I don't know. Lachey.
Lachey?
Yeah.
Lachey Rose?
Yes. And I called to make a request because looking at our pension plan, in 2011, the NFL, the owners, are due to present, I think it's June, they need to present a corrective action plan and submit it, and it's open for review for us, to bring the pension plan, which is endangered, it's below 70% of
Correct,
funding.
Rick.
So they have to take action to fund that, okay? And that plan is supposed to be formalized, I think, June of 11, whatever. I called to get a copy. I don't know how long I'm going to wait for that. But one of the concerns I have also is that if it's a benefit fund, a benefit, not a fund, it's going into the pension, and whether it's a double dip, meaning this is their correction plan for the endangered pension plan,
Ooh, I don't know.
versus the fund, or excuse me, the money
Right.
coming in for the legacy. They're now mixed together, and I asked for clarity if there's some sort of boundary when that money comes in, and I got ambiguity from Lachey. But, if it is a benefit that's based on actuarials, and you combine the actuarials to bringing the pension plan up, that's going to reduce your monthly payment dramatically.
As the owners, yeah, the owner's
owners.
monthly payment. I
Yeah.
can't answer that. I'm not an accountant. I'm not Aon or any of that. And quite frankly, anybody in here got their legacy check? Was it a separate check? It was a separate check, different than your regular pension check. So you received two checks or direct deposit or whatever, but it was two separate payments? Okay. I wasn't sure of that, and I was trying to ascertain that too, because as we fought real hard, I may have to take my pension. Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Have you not got their legacy check? Seriously, you haven't?
I had an opportunity to talk to several persons, and they said the first person they did was the person that's on the pension. They did them first. Afterwards, the persons who was on total and permanent disability, they would work on theirs. So I'm on total and permanent disability, and I haven't even got the paperwork to discuss how I would like my funds dispersed.
Unbelievable. They're so screwed up over there. They're right there in Baltimore. They are totally messed up.
If I may say, disability, you got an increase, you've already received it, and that is your legacy. They don't explain it, but that is your legacy money. So, if you had inactive, let John hold it back.
Well, let me just share this with you. I don't think it was confidence, but I could have a client. I've had a lot of my disability clients asking me if they would get a legacy benefit, and I told them I didn't know the answer. So I sent an email to Mary Ann Fleming. She's the head of NFL benefits, and her answer was, I honestly don't know.
I mean, there could be a situation, if you are currently receiving disability, you may not get a legacy benefit check. I mean, if they're screwing 320 women that your teammates protected, it's $12 million a year, gentlemen. It's pocket change. So if they're doing that, who knows what they're doing?
If you're receiving some type of disability, whether it's the new name, you have inactive A and inactive B, there was an increase. Okay? So, and then there'll be another increase in 2016.
To your disability payment, not payment, fund.
It's to your disability benefit.
Benefit, I'm sorry.
And I've been told that disability, that's your legacy. But I've never been told in writing. I was just told by John Oaken.
If that was my legacy increase, why did they not give me an option as to how I would receive it?
Because that's not the NFL operates.
Well, I mean, what Dave's saying, then you're not eligible for the legacy benefit per se. They just gave you a bump in your disability.
Now, if I'm wrong,
But I mean, believe me, I don't know. Maybe John can help us. I mean, you can say.
You know, and maybe I was reading too much into Mary Ann's comments, and I don't know this to be true, but I think that perhaps they were making different calculations to see if certain guys who had played a certain number of seasons, if they got a legacy benefit, that it would end up being a little more money than they were getting on disability. And I would think that would certainly only apply to a guy who's getting inactive, which was the lower paying category, and particularly if somebody taken the one-time draw from their pension, their benefits reduced 25%. So I don't know this to be the case, but I think maybe they were doing some calculations to see if some guys might end up with a little bit more.